on the evacuation of the building if appropriate. Tonight's proceedings will be webcast by the Council, but if anyone else is intending to record these proceedings, can you please let me know? I ask this question not to stop you, but to merely ensure that members and other members of the public in the room know that this is taking place. Now to the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies? Yeah, Councillor Blackmore.
Councillor John Perry.
Thank you. Notification of substitute members. Are there any substitute members?
Councillor Annabel Blackmore for Councillor Perry.
Thank you. Urgent, item 3, urgent items. We do not have any urgent items tonight. Agenda 4, notification of visiting members. Would you like to come forward?
Thank you, Chairman. Faye Gooch, and I'd like to speak on item, I think it's 14, which is the CCTV one, please. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. Agenda item 5, disclosures by members and officers. Are there any disclosures, members? Officers? Thank you. Agenda item 7, to consider whether any items should be taken in private because of the possible disclosure of exempt information. There are no yellow pages on the agenda tonight, so I propose we take the items as per the agenda. Is that all agreed, members? Thank you. Oh, I forgot agenda item 6, sorry. Disclosure of lobbying. Are there any disclosure of lobbying of members? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 8. We now turn to the minutes of the meeting of the 18th of October 2016, which starts at page 1. Can we take these pages one at a time? Page 1. Page 2. Page 3.
Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Page 3, Chair. The regarding the agreement between the businesses and under the community toilet scheme, we asked to see if we could see the actual agreement that's been made. I didn't know whether that was available yet at all, please.
Okay. What item is that on there?
It's on page 3. There's regarding the debate on the 18th, and it mentions various things. And then we specifically asked at that meeting that we would like to see the agreement that was being made between the businesses. It's mentioned when I can find it. Sorry, it is under the second bullet point. What agreement is made with the businesses signed up, and what can we expect from them? But within that, we asked this actually, or I asked, but specifically to actually see the agreement. Yeah, it's the second bullet point on page 3.
No, I didn't. Okay, yeah. The only thing that I'm worried about, it wasn't part of one of the recommendations to come back, which was page 4. All we've got is the I don't know. So can I have a bit of advice here? Where does that? Can we continue with it outside of the meeting, and we'll sort out for, please. Okay, where was we then? Page 4, 5, 4.
Page 4, the voting. If my memory is correct, and I've looked on the web, we voted against, but it says here 9-4, and we actually voted against, and I think it was that side that voted for, and we voted against. If you
Yes,
recall.
I
Can
do
you
remember that. Yeah, no, I do remember that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chairman.
So that will be amended. Page 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. So can I sign them as a correct? Correct? Yes? Thank you. Agenda item 9, presentation of any petitions, if any. Mrs Matthew, I understand we do not have any, is that correct? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 10, questions and answer sessions from members of the public. I understand we do not have any question, is that correct, Mrs Matthews? We now turn to the committee work programme. Do members want to make any comments on this? And or if no members, is there anything further that officers would like to correct? No. No. Councillor Littlemore. I've just promoted him. John?
Just in terms of the air quality management areas,
Yeah.
that is likely to slip to February, so just to give members
Yeah.
a heads up on that. We'll bring it back together with the work that the working group is going to start on the low emission strategy, so it'll probably be February now.
Yeah. Can I just ask as chairman, has this group now got together, or is there a date for it, or? Oh, next week.
22nd.
Okay. And when you've done your how you're going to run it and the things that your action plan that you'll be looking at, will you be letting every councillor, the 55 councillors, know what your remit is?
Yes, I mean, that
Please.
is the idea. Yes,
I know not just all the discussions, obviously, but people need to know who to come to talk to if they want anything brought up. So I think that's just a good idea that it goes to all. Thank you. So apart from that then, everybody okay? It is a living document that we can move about as and when, so... oh, sorry. Councillor Blackmore?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just one quick question. I see that you have the crime and disorder update next month, and then you've got another one in March, so I'm assuming that the December one is out of sync. Is there any reason why it's later? Surely it should have been around September or October.
No, it's not. The main agreement was once a year, but we like to have an update every 6 months. But it was late. One, trying to get everybody together. So that was the main date. The other thing that I'm very disappointed in is that we did want one special meeting, but I'm afraid because it's the end of the year, we've run out of bookings and dates. So we will be taking that first on December, and then we'll go back onto our normal business as soon as we finish. But we've only got the superintendent come in and Alison Broom. So hopefully they could give us lots of nice good news and updates. Thank you. Right. So now we're on agenda item 12. And report the Director of Finance and Business Improvement second quarter budget monitoring 2016-17. Sorry, it is Ellie, isn't it? Miss Ellie Dunnett. And you're welcome. So if you'd like to present this item.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the budget monitoring report for this committee for the second quarter of 2016-17. As I reported to you in the first quarter, the report sets out all of the significant variances against the revenue budget lines which fall under this committee's oversight. And all of the variances are listed at Appendix 1 to the report. The headline messages are that the overall position for this committee is an overspend, and that's forecast to increase to around 440,000 by the end of the year. The major contributor to that, as in the previous quarter and previous years, continues to be the overspend against the temporary accommodation budget. And I understand that the committee will be receiving details of some plans to address this later in the year as part of the temporary accommodation strategy.
Yes, Madam Chairman, there'll be a report in December on the temporary accommodation strategy, which sets out how we as a local authority will try and tackle that issue.
Thank you. The committee should also be aware that we're currently forecasting an overall overspend for the council in the report that will go to policy and resources next week. And we've therefore needed to introduce some additional controls around the authorisation of recruitment and discretionary spending with a view to bringing that back in line by the year end. And we're also looking at potential areas of underspend elsewhere to try and offset that before the year end. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had two quick questions. First was on the positive variance on the grounds maintenance budget. I understand that some of this, as in the report, is from external work. I was wondering if we could get a little bit more information into what the extent of that external work is, and whether it's a case of actually we're sort of over-resourcing a particular area and we're spilling over, or whether that's helping out other departments and areas within the council. And my second question is to do with this increased control and whether that is just sort of exercising a little bit of constraint in terms of when we decide to recruit people, or whether there are sort of specific, not policy ideals, but specific things that are being done in those areas. If we could have a little bit more information on that.
Sorry, Councillor Burton. So the first part was regarding was that grounds maintenance and us using, if you like, subcontractors.
Right, yeah, so the positive variance is down to additional income from external work. I just wanted to know a little bit more about what the extent of and cause of that external work being done was, where that comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. Our grounds maintenance departments do lots of external works, and it's a side of the business that we wanted to grow upon. Places such as parishes is our main bit. There's a number of play areas that they belong to, but don't have the expertise of how to maintain them. So we help them out. So it definitely is a growing side, and we are trying to grow that business with private companies as well to generate some income.
And then the second question around the controls. Initially, it's just increased review by the corporate leadership team around when somebody's proposing to recruit. That would require the approval of that group. And similarly, there's been a review of the discretionary budgets, and we're looking at just making sure that spending is absolutely necessary. At this stage, we're not looking to request that any further, but obviously monitor it closely as the year progresses.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Discretionary spending. It's a bit of a catch-all. Do you mind if I ask for just a few more details, just so we can have an idea as to what we're actually talking about? Obviously, we know that statutory services are sorting out the waste, homeless accommodation, etc. But I think an idea as to if there's anything in particular you're looking at there would be quite helpful.
I'd say the major areas of focus have been budgets that we can see are unspent for the year to date, that don't relate to anything that involves the delivery of a statutory service, and really just exploring what our options are for not spending that money. The major examples would probably be around professional services, things like that, training.
you like to come back?
When you say professional services, what are you referring to, out of interest?
Like use of consultants for external reviews, consultations, use of outsourcing a piece of work that potentially we'd have the option to do internally.
Yeah, we're coming in a minute. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I must say the overspend of 60,000 on street cleansing is a little bit worrying. Can you elaborate why that's happened, please?
Yeah, last year we implemented a review of our street cleansing. It's fair to say that those savings haven't been made as things haven't really gone according to plan. We are looking at a second review, hopefully in April, May of next year as well. It was just the bedding in of a new service didn't go as well as we want. We still expect those to be £60,000 worth of savings next financial year, but this year we've just found it a little bit tricky, especially with some staffing issues we've had as well.
You say staffing issues. What you mean? You haven't got enough staff, or are you presently recruiting more street cleansing staff then?
Yeah, we will be filling a number of vacancies that's been left behind. We've had issues such as long-term sick and some staff being suspended from duty. So, of course, those duties still have to be filled, but, of course, we still have to fill those we still have to pay them more wage. So that's one of the reasons that we haven't been able to make the £60,000 savings that we plan to do.
Okay. All very good, interested in the questions, and I know this had to come along this evening, Ellie, but I think hopefully we'll all be a lot wiser when we meet with Mark at these budget things that I asked for, because normally we would be sitting down as a team with someone before it would even come to here as such. So I think tonight we can only give it lip service, and thank you very much for all the hard work that you've done, Ellie. But hopefully, I'm trying to think in our head what day it is. We've got ours. Is it the 30th of November?
No, I think it's 28th.
Is it the 20? No, it can't be. 20. I don't know if it's the 29th or the 28th, but I just wanted to ask everybody to make sure that they come along, because that's where we could really pin down these questions that we've asked tonight, and what good ideas that officers may be presenting to solve some budget problems. I think the housing one is, I think we're more disappointed that we've got all these people that need a home more than what we are, from my side anyway, the budget, because none of us sitting here with a crystal ball know how many people is going to become homeless within a week, but we also know what our statutory duty is. So, but I think from what we have read, I think we could sort of pat ourselves on the back. We've done quite well. We've not asked for anything extravagant, and we've kept fairly in the line. So thank you very much, committee members. And thank you, Ellie. So now we are agenda item 13, the report of Head of Policy and Communication, Strategic Plan, Performance Update, Quarter 2016-2017. Thank you, Anna.
Good evening, members. This is the Quarter 2 Performance Plan, which shows progress against the key performance indicators, key strategies and plans, and provides a mid-year progress against the Strategic Plan Action Plan. All of the indicators and strategies are within the remit of this committee. I start with some really positive news. Overall, the picture is very strong. 82% of targeted indicators are on target. 60% of indicators have an improved direction of travel, and all strategies and plans are on track. So that's very good news. I think I'd like to, because it's such a good picture, I'd like to point in some particular directions. The percentage of household waste sent to recycling is very strong performance. Number of completed disabled facilities grants. Footfall in the high street is particularly good, as we could have seen a reduction in footfall because of all the works going on, but we haven't. The households prevented from becoming homeless. The number of affordable homes delivered, and the households housed through the housing register. I believe that's a sort of whistle-stop tour, but I think it is showing a very good picture. I think one of the things that members might be interested in, it's been on every committee agenda, is the number of parishes that are satisfied with communication and engagement, and I think members might have some questions around that. And there's another couple of areas, the percentage of litter deposits and safeguarding training, which are both on red, which I'm happy to take any questions about, or the managers that are here tonight.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Any questions, anybody? Councillors? Councillor Mortimer?
Yeah, thank you. One of them is basically an observation where we ought to sort of like review the... it is on. Yeah. Right. It's on page 25 and 5.7. It mentions the 101 service with that KPI, and I think that's the reason I bring it up is we know I think we'll all agree the 101 service is pretty poor and has been poor. So I think in future, once and hopefully that gets up to a really good performance standard, the KPI will need looking at as well. So that's one of the other things. And regarding the parish one as well, I think because of the situation with the parishes and the setups regarding clerks, number of councillors, etc., it's a huge animal, if I can put it like that, that it's very, very difficult to monitor, and are we really looking at it the right way, the way we actually communicate?
Within regards to reviewing the performance indicators, we've just started that process now, so we'll be coming back to you with a report of the new performance indicators. So each one will be reviewed, and you can sort of have an opportunity to take a look at that then, and if you feel that that's appropriate. I don't know whether Mr Littlemore wants to add anything in regards to the parish key performance indicator, but they are undertaking a review of that at the moment. There were comments that came back with the whole survey, so there was more than one question in that survey. So they're taking the comments from that, and that will shape any kind of engagement and communication going forward.
Councillor Burton, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. The report paints a very good picture, and at risk of sounding a little sort of lax, I think, you know, there's some fantastic work being done, and well done, and thank you for that. My only question, I understand we're not here to sort of pick apart what the KPIs are, and we kind of did that quite a bit last time this report came, but one of the things that did strike me, and I think it is worth noting, is I do wonder whether with the disabled facilities grant KPI, whether actually the number of completions is something we ought to be looking at, because that, to my mind, whether or not you qualify for a disabled facilities grant should be fairly objective from a set of criteria, and actually to say that we have a certain target or quota to meet for that could actually be quite damaging to the process. And what I wonder is whether actually maybe we ought to measure the expedience of delivery on disabled facilities grants as opposed to the number of them that we look at. So I understand that's not why we're here tonight. I think the report shows good signs, but you know, worth thinking about for the future, perhaps.
We're in the process, so I'll take that on board and we can feed that in.
Yeah, I think a lot of these KPIs, I will let you come in, John, but I must say, I think some of them are just, forgive me, just pie in the sky. I do worry when we've got KPIs that are responsibility of other partners, and we've got them there, but as Anna says, it is time to have a look at them again. And I think quite a few people will get an opportunity because this is time, this is staff time. These are figures that we wouldn't be able to put our finger on and change overnight. So, yeah, but well done for the bits that we have got right. Councillor Mortimer.
I'd just like to say regarding the homeless preventions, I think that's an excellent work by the team.
Yeah.
And they ought to be applauded for the work they do.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wonder if you can help me out. On page 43, we've got housing strategy update. And then we've got it on page 48. I'm assuming the one that's there on page 43 just shouldn't be there. So I can just ignore that. It looks like it's the same language, just in the wrong place. It seems to have, I don't know, turned up. Page 43 at the top, housing strategy update. Then if you go to page 48, you've got housing strategy update.
I think that's just copied and pasted over in some way. So sorry about that.
That's fine as long as I haven't missed anything. My only concern about that is it's got a sort of a green tick, but of course we know that the numbers are going up. We know that the budget has ballooned a little bit, and it almost looks as if by having that little tick there that it's sort of on target and doing well, but that's not what the figures say. So I'm just a bit puzzled, really.
Sorry, the indicator was
Yeah.
really about the production and adoption of the housing strategy, which got the tip because that was done on time. There are various elements of the housing strategy, of which homelessness is just part. The other parts of the strategy are being delivered, such as the affordable housing, as you heard, the disabled facility grants, all of that. So you're correct that there is an issue for us, challenging in terms of tackling the homelessness crisis, but we do have actions in place to do that, so that's why it's ticked. All the other actions within the strategy are on target.
Yeah, sure.
May I ask one more? This actually relates to fly tipping, because for the third quarter there are no figures in there, but I have a sneaky feeling that you probably have a kind of idea of what quarter three sort of looks like. Just as a sort of vague idea, if that's all right, if you don't mind.
Very similar to quarter two.
Now there's a diplomat.
A little change in the type of waste that's been cited, more construction and green waste, which is expected this time of year, but actually the numbers are about the same.
How come in 2015-16 there was that huge spike then for the third quarter? I mean, that looks enormous in comparison with other quarters.
I've looked after these figures for the last 5 years, and there really is. Sorry, there really is no pattern. I've investigated as much as I can. Things such as restriction into KCC tips can have something to do with some of the dealings, but yeah, I'm afraid there is no logic. The logic is there is none.
Okay. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Chairman. Just going on the parish liaison officer, I remember when Yasmin Gordine came to her first parish council meetings to introduce herself, she said she was not, or it was a temporary position for 1 year at the moment.
For 1 year.
Is there any sort of update on that? Is she going to be sort of continued, or how's that situation going?
Would you like to answer that, John?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. You're correct. The funding that was acquired for that post was for a fixed term of 12 months. That comes to an end this December. We are just about to write out to the parishes to inform them that most of the objectives that were set for that role have been achieved. We're not looking to fund that post further. Thank you.
Thank you. So, no more questions? No, that's fine then. So, where are we? So can we turn to page 22? These are just for noting. Would you want me to read them out to members, or you're quite happy with what you're reading? Yeah? So are these all agreed, members? Thank you. Thank you very much. Agenda item 14, report of Head of Housing and Community Services review of the CCTV funding findings and options. Ms George Oaks, I understand you will be introducing this, assisted by
I'll do my best.
John Littlemore. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. So this report summarises the findings from the recent review of CCTV funding, details the potential options available and recommends which options should be developed in more detail with our partners and reported back to committee. I think the report says January, but I believe we're probably looking at February now in terms of the work that needs to be done to develop those options further. CCTV is a high-cost service to the council. It cost about £340,000 last year. The majority of that is due to the 95 static cameras that the council maintains, of which those are monitored and maintained with a partnership agreement with a number of other authorities and by Medway Council for us. So that cost us around about £315,000 last year. We also have a smaller and much less expensive mobile camera service, which can be and is deployed around the borough, mainly outside of the town centre where there are fewer cameras because the static cameras are mainly concentrated within the town centre and vicinity. The cost of that was approximately £25,000 last year. In terms of the budgets, they are overspent. Last year, about £80,000, mainly due to an unrealised historic budget saving, and we've also seen a reduction in income from monitoring CCTV for other organisations like the NHS and KCC. And the cost of the camera fibre lines bringing the information into the matrix at the town hall cost us more than we thought it was going to too. One thing to note is that expenditure on the CCTV monitoring contract with Medway has remained within budget, so it's not that part of the service that is overspent. The review itself was comprehensive, covering a number of things. We looked at our operations, we looked at international and national studies of CCTV, we talked to our stakeholders, and we carried out surveys of businesses, residents and visitors to the town centre. Now, the key findings from the review are shown at 2.9 to 2.16, I believe. I don't intend to go through all of those because there's quite a number there, but I draw your attention to the summary paragraphs at 2.17 and 2.18, which essentially said, in terms of findings, the independent studies we looked at suggested that CCTV is, in itself, by itself, not very effective in preventing crime and disorder and has little or no effect on crime in city centres. And that was a Home Office report that showed us some of that. However, various studies have shown it is better when combined with other interventions and in high coverage areas where there are a lot of cameras. We also found, looking at our operations, about half of our static cameras pick up fewer than 3 incidents a month. So not that many in terms of the timescales. When we talked to our partners in the voluntary sector and Kent Police, they said they did value CCTV, particularly for keeping the nighttime economy as safe as possible and for the police in terms of investigating crime. Again, talking to Kent Police, they were prepared to say that they believe the static system could be proportionately reduced without significant negative impact on their operations. Where in terms of the consultation we did with the public, generally the public value CCTV, but they're more likely to say that things like well-lit streets and a visible police presence are more likely to make them feel safer than CCTV. Something to highlight is because we found that a number of our cameras are potentially not justified, so not picking up a lot of incidents, and they're potentially not justified under the Home Office's Surveillance Camera Code of Practice 2013. We now have to look at that system. We've got to do an audit of those cameras to make sure that we are compliant and remain compliant with that code of practice. That has to be done anyway. That could lead to a reduction in cameras if we find that they are not justified. However, in conjunction with this, the options that are recommended for carrying on further and developing further with our partners are looking at the possibilities for reducing the service. And that could be in terms of number of cameras, and or it could be in terms of the hours that the service is actually monitored by an operator. Currently it's 24/7 with Medway. Coupled with this, there may well be opportunities in terms of better use of technology, and we believe we should also explore other funding opportunities. Now, both of those are likely to give us less of an opportunity to reduce the cost of the service, particularly now that we have talked to the Police and Crime Commissioner and Kent Police and found that they are not able to help us fund the CCTV, the ongoing costs of CCTV further. Now, we have made some recommendations as part of the report at paragraphs 3.6 and 3.7 that because we are talking about the potential to reduce the service, we feel it is important to look at where that should be prioritised if that does happen. So the recommendations are that we should be looking to keep and protect those cameras where there are high levels of crime, where they do pick up a lot of incidents and so therefore they are effective. And also in terms of the active monitoring, so when they're actually monitored by an officer, that we should be looking to keep and protect where we can those times where active monitoring is most important to ensure public safety. From discussions with our partners, that looks as if it's likely to be the busy and perhaps whizzy weekend nighttime economy. I think in terms of noting, we have said as part of the recommendations that committee note that we do intend to extend the partnership with Medway and with our other partners for another year, but we will be looking to renegotiate that with our partners, and if we do make any changes in terms of service provision, then we will be looking to incorporate those in terms of the new contract, so we should be able to realise savings for next year, even though we're looking to extend the partnership. I think another thing to note is we're extending that, and it then gives us an opportunity to look at this again in greater detail, for example, incorporating some of those other things that we haven't recommended should be pursued at the current time. For example, potentially commissioning other partners to undertake things on our behalf, and we will be able to perhaps have a closer look at alternative providers from Medway. Happy to take questions.
Sorry, before I call anybody, I need to... Would you like to come forward, Councillor Faye Gooch? I like using first names. Come in.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good evening, members. I have to say that I deputised for the leader on the Kent and Medway Police and Crime Panel, and this report was brought to my attention very, very quickly, and I hurriedly whizzed through it to see how I could contribute to the conversation, knowing that I would be part of the panel that brings the police commissioner to account. So I thought, well, I wondered if I could make myself useful and ask him a question that would help us. And so the question I chose that was put to him this morning was directed towards the impact on the police service in their investigation of crime if we reduced CCTV. I particularly wanted to know what the impact of that would be. And I realised that obviously you were carrying out that work, but I thought to get a slant directly from him, from the panel's point of view, would be an interesting way to see whether or not it would mirror your findings or whether I might be able to uncover something drastically different. I don't think I did. My question was basically to say that of all the requests for the mobile camera deployed last year, Kent Police did actually use the mobile camera for things like throwing stuff over the prison wall, criminal damage, and it really helped to reduce the amount of time of police investigation on guilty pleas. So, in other words, how far would the reduction in CCTV impact on police time? Well, he, in his response to my question, I got quite a long explanation about the because the CCTV is an example of where partnership is important for community safety and it helps to protect the public from harm, and it covered a lot of stuff that's in your report. The partnership element is important because CCTV is not a statutory responsibility of policing, neither is it our statutory responsibility. It's historically been funded by local authorities. But basically, he was saying that Kent Police, because of its financial challenges, they're not in a position to provide contributions towards CCTV networks directly. And he was saying that I would also add that in terms of those seeking financial contributions to CCTV networks, community safety partnerships do receive financial contributions from my office to them, and it's up to them entirely as to how they decide to spend it. I would also say that, for example, Medway and Gravesham use some of the money I give them, he gives them, I should say, in order to support the cost of their CCTV network. And it's an important message, an important example of how partnerships can work. Now, that's all well and good, but I said to him, yeah, but what about the impact, please? Let's get to the impact. That was a little bit more interesting. He said, I have considered the impact on police time, and I would urge anyone who is reviewing their CCTV networks to be mindful of the value that each camera provides in terms of how often it's been used. I think that when considering whether they continue the use of any camera, it has to be on the basis of what value it has provided in the past, and I think you've touched on that in your report, so I found that very useful. He said, CCTV itself has enabled us to collect vital evidence in cases to help us progress swifter justice, get earlier guilty pleas. Also, it's very valuable when it comes, in particular, to police appeals. He said, I find, he said, CCTV valuable. The police find CCTV to be valuable. But again, it's an example of where we need to work together with councils on non-statutory services to make sure that we're doing the best by the public. Well, I'm not, you can interpret that how you like, but I just thought that I hope it helps in feeding back, because a lot of what he said is mirrored in your report. I wondered actually if there was a veiled comment there to say, look guys, we're supposed to be working in partnership here. I think that's the feeling I got. He doesn't want to pay for it, but hey. Anyway, thank you very much for your time this evening. If there is anything that I can do to help the committee at all when I go to these panels to hold the Commissioner to account, not the police constable, Chief Constable, but the Commissioner, do please let me know and I'll be glad to help. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much. You've brought us a really good idea that hasn't been mentioned tonight, which I would definitely like to see added in, about getting money from the Safer Meetster Partnership. And perhaps they can pay for some of their own. That's very interesting. And it is really nice to have someone who's actually sat down with the Commissioner and, dare I say, on our side, asking the right questions. So I thank you for that. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Mortimer.
Thank you. Just say thank you to Councillor Gooch for going along today. Thank you very much. Generally, I do support the review and the one-yearly extension that we need on this. I think whatever we do, we always have to have the resident safety in the forefront of it, whatever happens. Regarding the consultation, though, it's peppered with feel safe, I think. So it's the perception of what the public feels safe with, although it doesn't show the underlining, the reasons, the real world of what that camera is doing and how it's intervening in people's lives and assisting the police. I've got my doubts that some of the data that we get, or that as a council, is poor to a certain extent, and I've got my doubts around this, and that does go back to the original contract when we went with Medway originally, and I don't think we've actually got it all the way through. On page 62, as an example, on 2.14. That's the police response regarding their contribution towards it. And I went through it. My first thought was, I wonder what they'd do if we said, no, we can't afford it any longer. I wonder what that response would be, sort of thing. And would they welcome us as partners, or possibly we've got to do something different? So it's a balance of people on the ground against the camera, or lighting perhaps, or something like that. Also, I think we have to have in mind that the Medway operation is a commercial unit, and it operates as Medway Commercial Group Limited. So there's that sort of like that commercial edge that possibly we lose out on in Maidstone, which I think a number of us brought up before when we reviewed it. We'll be actually earning out of it at all. And regarding the cameras that we may need to take out, can I ask a question? Why haven't we done this before? Because it's a 2013 Act, and I just wondered, are we actually looking at cameras all the time and what they're doing and how many we've got, or do we just do it at certain stages when we have to do it? Thank you.
I think John needs to come in on that one, Derek.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have previously reviewed the cameras, and a number of cameras were decommissioned. I think that was back in 2014. I think we still had a cabinet member then, so it was at that time. So we do carry out a regular review of the information that we receive about cameras. Just to pick up some of the questions that you said, the monitoring information that we receive from Medway Borough Council is basically the same monitoring information we used to look at when it was when we had the system in-house. So that hasn't changed very much. I take your point about what's value we can glean from that, because it's mainly about what incidents are picked up by cameras. So, yes, I think what's very clear from the report is that a number of studies have been completed, including the Home Offices, and no one can actually empirically identify what value CCTV has. And you were quite right to point out it is about perception. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next on my list is Annabelle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So we started off with 10 cameras in 95, and we've now got 90 plus. Now, within that period of time, I'm going to make an assumption, so if I've made an incorrect assumption, please tell me. I'm assuming that most of those 95 are within the town centre bit. So within that town centre bit, it's my understanding that the majority of businesses have got their own CCTV outside their sort of front door plus a little bit more. So do I take it that we are sort of maybe doubling up and you've almost got two lots of cameras covering the same place? Is that fair or not?
Madam Chairman, I think you're quite right. Between the inception of CCTV and where we are today, there's been massive increases in technology and use of CCTV. You're quite right. A number of shops now have their own systems, and we've also seen the development of body-worn cameras by police officers and our own officers, all of which contribute very much to a different approach in the use of CCTV, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen a change possibly in the amount of data that's picked up by our static cameras. So the world is evolving and we need to evolve with it, you're quite right.
So that leads me on to my next question, which is, if technology is evolving and static cameras were very good in 1995 but are not necessarily the way forward now, and you've mentioned the little cameras that the police have. I noticed some of them were wearing them at the parade on Sunday. I'm not saying we shouldn't have CCTV, but are we smart enough? So, for example, we've got the mobile units. You know, how many incidents are picked up on the mobile units? Why are we using technology from 20 years ago? Should we be looking at something different? I'm assuming that's the kind of thing that the review will actually undertake. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Have an answer?
Yes, I think so. Are we using old technology? Yes, we probably are. Are we ever going to get to the stage where we don't need the same kind of coverage as we currently do from a static system? Yes, very probably, as John says, technology is evolving. I think in terms of the extending the contract with Medway, we have another year to perhaps look at that in greater depth to really understand a future model and whether what we have in terms of static cameras combined with the mobiles, which does give us the ability then to be able to respond to intelligence and place cameras where there are issues, whether that will be the correct model for us going forward, or whether, in fact, another model is required.
Because I think there's another issue as well. You look at the number of people who've got smartphones and the ability to record incidents. And, of course, you look at the cameras and you think, well, hang on, if we're paying whatever thousand for the cameras and you've actually got members of the public who are recording incidents on their phone, are we actually looking at this in the smartest way possible? And clearly there are different options. Re the extension to the contract for a year, assuming that the review is going to be thorough, is a year enough?
Madam Chairman, based on our experience from last time, we believe it will be adequate time to do that.
Thank you very much. Who have I got next? Councillor Burton, and then I've got Cynthia. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Blackmore's already touched on the involvement of local business potentially in this CCTV network that we have, particularly in our town centre. But one thing I would like to say about this preliminary report is I was really pleased to see, I think it's 3.15, the inclusion of the idea that we might actually seek that as a funding source for CCTV as well. Without wanting to sort of pick on any particular business or whatever, but take, for example, you know, the McDonald's at the end of Week Street, if we did away with all of the static cameras in that surrounding area, I dare say they would probably still have their own camera on the outside of their building, as they do have. And I do think we are perhaps doubling up in these high concentration areas. I'd like to extend that a little bit further if we, and without wanting to sort of try to crystal ball gaze too much, if we do go the route of decommissioning a number of static cameras, there's this cost involved in decommissioning £600 per camera. Okay, not a huge amount given the scale of a budget, but 60,000 to do away with a lot, that's quite a lot of money. I wonder if there's even some scope for offsetting that decommissioning cost by perhaps offering the opportunity to local businesses to purchase the hardware to use. You know, do the shops, the businesses that run in the town centre still have an interest in maintaining it, or at least maintaining the image of a camera being there? And the last thing I'd just like to say, just really quickly, I think the report's fantastic, really open-ended, sort of set the scene really well, a lot of background information, found it really useful. One thing I would like to say is when we have reports come further on this, it would be really handy to have some fairly detailed maps of where CCTV cameras are, and which ones are us and which ones might just be ones that we see on shop fronts that could also be useful in doing this piece of work. Thank you.
Before Councillor Robertson comes in, it's always nice, these sort of things, knowing exactly the ins and outs, but also there's data protection, there's protection of people. My one grad sad thing is, and Councillor Gooch has just repeated that, we have these partners, but no one wants to help. And at the end of the day, the first thing they're going to do is blame us as councillors that we've let our residents down. And I know businesses are important, I do know that, but we have lots of residents who have more cameras they know what to do with in areas of deprivation. I don't even know if they work. I've always contested I'll never know whether they work. I do feel that we need to be a bit more open with our own councillors when they wish to have mobile cameras put in areas, because the statistic that Councillor Gooch has brought, if you think that the police use them mostly, i.e. for the prison, well, haven't the prisons got cameras? I'm really at a loss of who says to these lovely police, our partners, and anybody else that comes, yeah, be our guest, take our camera. We'll do the logging for you. And that's going back to the point. So if we say we want to change something and the residents blame us, we're not really, because our residents are very intelligent. But sometimes I think they miss that when they pay their council tax, we only get a little percentage. The rest of it goes to the police. It goes to fire and rescue. And anybody else that wants to come in and have a dip in. So all I'm saying is, this is the best we're looking at for our residents. As much as we hate that we could sit in with partners, but I do feel we believe that if the Safer Mates Partnership don't wish to contribute, we need to be looking at, in your bit that you will be looking at, that we're not there for them to come along and say, I want your cameras put out. If a resident's come along, I think there's a great need for it. But if we're doing this, all the partners are getting the joy from it. Somewhere along the line, we've got to make a stand, haven't we, and prove a point. But our aim is to look after our residents to the best of our ability. I don't know if everybody agrees with me on that, but that's how I'm looking at it. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a small point to begin with. On the top of page 57, the question, is the final decision on the recommendations in this report to be made at this meeting? I think it should be no instead of yes. Do you agree? Yeah? Because we're going to look at it again, aren't we?
Yes, but if you look down, if you look down, item 1 and 2 are for noting. The only decision that we're making is if we're going to take this investigation further to have more information, etc., brought back to us. We are not closing down cameras or anything tonight.
No.
All we're looking at is all the things that we've asked for as councillors sitting in this room, and that officers have picked up themselves for that to come back to us in February.
Okay.
So you're quite happy with that? Well, so that should have been off, really, I suppose.
Yeah. And another point that jumped out at me from the survey from the members of the public is that the actual thing that makes them feel safe is well-lit streets and a visible police presence, which does make you think, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And talking about well-lit streets, there are a few street lights out, in the town quite a lot. And I think it's up to KCC to get their act together and get these lights mended. Also, I expect everybody, perhaps people saw someone interviewed from the Urban Blue Bus and the street pastors, and I think they were particularly worried that their service might be jeopardised in some way, you know, if we were going to reduce the CCTV cameras. So I think we've got to take into account their views when we look at it.
I don't think at any time that we've not taken in their views. But at the end of the day, as you say, everybody's cutting their cloth. And this is serious. And if I was in trouble, where would I go? To a policeman? So if the police are saying these certain things, then we make the most of that and question why they've said it. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are prosecuting, not us. So we will do our best for our residents, but I think it's going to be an hard thing to look at. But no one's getting rid of CCT. And I wanted to make that quite clear. I feel that as chairman, in one form or another, we will have something. And as I say, with you lovely ones that catch up with technology, you most probably show us things that we've never seen before. So this is a good time to get all the information we can. The staff have been brilliant and worked with us, so I won't disagree. Anything that they ask a question on, they always let me and the Vice Chairman know. So, yeah, I'm quite pleased with what's going on. So, if there's no more questions, if we go to page 57, I could... Oh, Councillor Mortimer.
Sorry. I mean, you mentioned it just now regarding this yes-no issue, and I've got a problem with that. I think it ought to say no, because it does say is the final decision on the recommendations in the report. And the subject is a no, essentially, the report. And also, I agree with you, 1.1 is noting and 2 is for noting, but 3 is more specific because you've got the options down there. But in the report, there's even more options. So I would suggest that we take out the 3 points at the bottom and we just have note the options for the use of TV funding.
Right. John to come in on that one.
Madam Chair, just to make clear, the recommendations as set out for you are officer recommendations for members to consider to take us down a specific route. You could choose to put forward different options based on the whole remit, which runs from turn them all off to keep them all. But what we're asking members to endorse is an approach where we, as it sets out there, to explore further these very specific areas. So I think in terms of the recommendations it stands, it was written very carefully for that way as an officer recommendation. It's for members to, as you've done, debate tonight and decide whether you are content to follow that, so that a further report will come back in January, February time around those issues, or you want to broaden it further, in which case it would require you to put an amended recommendation forward.
So, Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Not wanting to sort of open this and extend this in an unwarranted manner, but I do wonder in that case, actually, whether we ought to be seeing a report that does extend to all the options, such as doing away with CCTV completely. Now, I'm not going to sit there and suggest that I'm in any way for that, but I do believe that it has been explored to some extent in this, and it would be foolhardy of us to then go and make a decision on a report that doesn't give us that option as well in the future. So I would like to move an amendment to those recommendations that does also extend to keeping all of the CCTV and doing away with all of the CCTV.
Madam Chairman, that was the intention of this report. This is why it's been brought to you. But the officer recommendation within it, yes. So basically what the officer recommendation is to discount turning them all off, to discount keeping it as it is, because we feel the best option is the one that's on your papers.
if I may quickly come back on that, then that was one thing I was going to add, was I'm not really actually sure what more information we would get. So having said that, yes, it would be good to have all the information presented, I'm not entirely sure what more would go into it other than this, so I'm also happy to now retract that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Sorry. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. May I make a suggestion? Instead of reduce the CCTV service, if that says review the CCTV service, because then that will encompass everything, won't it? Whether you keep it as it is, you reduce it, you decommission it, but it will also include the mobile CCTV or cameras, whereas only the static ones are mentioned here. There's nothing there about the mobile ones. And I feel if you have a review of the service, then you're also incorporating the mobile cameras too.
Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. The recommendation should include both mobile and static. We can amend that to make that clearer. Once again, I would ask members to help us officers in terms of being able to focus down on what we need to do next. So it was deliberately termed in this way so that we could deal with what we need to do in terms of looking, and it's still going to be quite an amount of work to actually come back to you and say, because there's still quite a range when you say reduce the CCTV service, that could be reduce it to 10 cameras or reduce it to 50. So there's still going to be a broad church, if you like, of options for you to look at. What we didn't want to do was, keep all the options in at this stage, because we felt, having looked at all the evidence and all the rest of it, there were certain options that just weren't worth further consideration. As you say, there's not much more we can actually bring back to you.
Councillor Mortimer.
I just wanted to chip in and to say that, especially when you look at the cross-cutting issues and implications on page 67, every box is full up. So when we look at, we have to include, at this stage, everything before we move forward.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Okay, so just to bring some clarity to this, because I think it does come back to this, whether it's a yes or a no in the top right-hand corner. It is a yes, because actually we've got a deck of 52 cards in front of us. You're asking us to take away 26 and let you get on with showing us what the other 26 are. Right, okay, I'm agreed with that.
Anybody else? Would you like to repeat your recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to change the word reduce to review the CCTV service, because I think then that incorporates everything else. But yeah, just change that one word, if I may.
Have we got a seconder? Webster. Can I have a vote on that? Would you like to read that back out for me? We've had a seconder, everybody, on Annabelle's recommendation. Would you like to repeat it again, somebody?
Right, so Councillor Blackmore has made a change that instead of reduce on bullet point 1, it says review the CCTV services.
And that was seconded by Councillor Webster. Can I have a full vote on that, please? Just 3? Against? 4? Oh, sorry, abstention. I was already counting up with Caroline, thank you. 4? 5? 5. Oh, I haven't voted. I'm going with the first one.
So we're 4 and 5, so that's lost.
Yeah, that's lost, I'm afraid. So, we stay at the recommendations as they are, or have you anything to bring forward, Councillor Mortimer? I can see your face.
Personally, I would like the actual statement to stay in 3 and to note the options in the report, etc., and remove the 3 bullet points altogether, because I think it says it all.
No, it doesn't, does it? So that's a recommendation. I've got a seconder, Councillor Joy. I need a vote on that. So everybody for that, please? For? This is for the recommendation. No. This is the recommendation. Okay, let's go again. So we had a seconder.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, but if you remove the 3 bullet points, the recommendation doesn't actually make any sense.
Thank you, John.
So what would you like me to do, Councillor Mortimer?
Could you give me a minute, please, Chair?
I will bring in then Councillor Joy.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the problem I have with this is more saying that it's our final decision in that yes box. I do understand what the officers have said to me, but I still can't quite get round that it's saying final decision. That's the bit that's got me, personally.
But it's a final decision on that one, isn't it?
It really is a technical matter, because it won't affect us bringing you back the paper with the final decision. All it's saying is you are making a decision tonight on the issues in the paper.
Okay. So Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, so that we do get down to 26 cards, I'd like to move the recommendations as on the paper. Actually, no, sorry. I'd like to move the amendment just to make sure that mobile CCTV is included in that, because I think it was intended to be included. That was covered earlier. And I'd like to move that.
Would you like to retract your...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I will retract mine.
Okay then, thank you very much. Yes, I need a seconder for Councillor Burton's. Councillor Blackmore, thank you. And can I have a vote on that, please? And they're all going to sit there and say what we're voting on. Thank you. Thank you. So,
I'm sorry.
everybody's doing everybody's work tonight.
For the motion, yes.
Right, yeah. Against? Abstain? 4. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We got there in the end. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, officers. Oh, yes, please. My leg is throbbing.